Welcome now the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Jim Risch of Idaho, coming to us today from Capitol Hill. Senator, thank you so much for being here. And
thank you, David. Glad to be here.
We've had a headline cross the Bloomberg terminal just within the last few minutes that according to the Russian Foreign Ministry, Foreign Minister Lavrov and Secretary of State Pompeo have spoken about Venezuela. Since the time of President Monroe, the United States has not taken kindly to European powers intervening in this hemisphere. What do we know about what the Russians are up to down there?
Well, look, I think Maduro made a horrible mistake for his own personal safety yesterday. He was reported to be ready to leave, and with encouragement from the Russians, he did not. We have the Monroe Doctrine. It is alive and well. It is embraced by virtually every president, every administration since it was put in place. We believe in it. And I think listening to a foreign power like that from out of this Western Hemisphere and acting on their directions is a big, big mistake for Mr. Maduro.
It is clear what the United States policy is and has been for some time that Mr. Guaido is the legitimate president and he should be in power down there. But what, as a practical matter, are our options, United States options in effectuating that?
Well, first of all, the United States, as we've said clearly from the beginning, we stand with the Venezuelan people. They use their constitution to make a change in their regime there in Venezuela. And Juan Guaido is the president of Venezuela. He's recognized as such by us as Americans. Mr. Maduro is not. And as a result of that, what we want to see is we want to see a peaceful transition of power. And that has been so far to a large degree taking place. But when you have Mr. Maduro being directed by a foreign power out of this hemisphere, he needs to really reevaluate what that does for his own personal health and welfare.
Mr. Guaido, thus far at least, has been free to move about in Venezuela. But what are the risks for him personally, both in terms of his personal freedom, but even his safety?
Well, as these things go, obviously, there's risks for him. Mrs. Guaido was here in the United States Capitol, and we met with her. She explained to us what they've been through, and she brought some others with her that have had personal difficulties there. So, yeah, that is difficult. These people are real heroes and patriots in Venezuela for what they're doing. Again, these things are moving very quickly. As you've said, it's very fluid. This cannot go on. Mr. Maduro is through there, and the sooner he embraces that idea and finds an exit ramp, the better off he's going to be, the better off Venezuela's going to be, the better off the Western Hemisphere is going to be.
Mr. Guaido's mentor, Leopoldo Lopez, had been detained in Venezuela. He escaped, and now, as we understand it, he has sought refuge in the Chilean embassy down there. Would the United States offer him sanctuary?
Well, with him in the Chilean embassy, that really isn't necessary. He's on foreign soil right now, even though he's in Caracas. That's always been respected. I think that's probably okay. If it's not, Mr. Lopez obviously is someone who will have some say as they reform down there, and it's important that his safety be secured.
Okay, moving on to another part of your jurisdiction in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. We had reports today that President Trump is preparing to declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. Do you know about that? Is that in the works? And what would be the consequences of that?
Well, first of all, I do know about that. And secondly, I can tell you it is very, very complicated. The Muslim Brotherhood is a very diffuse organization and has different rules in different parts of the world. One of the rules it has is as a terrorist organization in some parts of the world. And that's not acceptable. And on the other hand, naming the entire organization, particularly where they're embedded in actual governments in some parts of the world, really is complicating. So this needs to be well thought through. It needs to be well vetted before there's actually such a declaration. I know the president is working on this seriously. He takes the complexity of it seriously, and it's a work in progress.
We also have a deadline coming up tomorrow, Thursday, for the Iranian sanctions and the lapsing of those waivers that were given. As far as you know, will that go forward? The sanctions will be clamped down, and what is your level of confidence that, in fact, we can stop oil exports from Iran?
Yeah, as you know, we've tightened the screw pretty tightly since we started this, and we've stopped about half of the flow. The other half, the vast majority of it, is due to the waivers. The waivers are going to expire tomorrow. They are not going to be extended, and the flow is going to get reduced even more. There is one of the great unreported issues in the world today is the economic difficulty within Iran. I think the Iranian people are not going to stand for this. The rial devalued over half of its value last year, and it continues to deteriorate. This action by the United States is going to further pressure the Iranian regime to stop the bad things that they're doing. They're designed to change behavior. We hope they would do that. But the pressure's going to stay on until they do. They cannot continue to support be the state sponsor of terrorism that they have been.
Senator, you wear more than one hat down there. I want to talk about the Intelligence Committee just for one moment. We're hearing testimony right now by Attorney General Barr related to the Mueller report. When can we expect to have a report of the Intelligence Committee?
Well, you know, we have been working on that for a couple of years. We've looked at hundreds of thousands of documents, interviewed dozens and dozens of people. It's really time to get this to be put into a report that's laid on the table. I really don't think there's going to be any surprises in that. The stuff that the Mueller report came out with, when it came out, was no surprise to us. It was stuff we've known for a year or more. And so it's important we get this done. The Intelligence Committee has a lot of really important work to do. I've been on 3 investigations. I was on the first one with torture, the second one with Benghazi, and now this one. We have other things that we need to do in our oversight capacity into seeing that the Intelligence Committee is doing the job it's supposed to do. And this has been something that's taken a lot of our time.
Okay, Senator, I really appreciate your time today. That's Senator Jim Risch.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
Great to have you, Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.